I lead a team of people who help clients to get successful at Pure, which involves consulting on integrating data into and out of Pure. So I'm pleased to chair this panel or moderate this session where we're going to talk about the business benefits of getting data into and out of Pure. This is a non-technical session, and we're really just going to focus on the business experience of and value of these integrations. So we all know that Pure has some built-in integrations and certain sources where it can connect to directly without any integration work, publications, grants, metrics, and things like that. And then during your orientation of Pure, you probably were brought up to speed by the fact that there's other ways to get data into and out of Pure. So in terms of getting data out of Pure, lots of options. There's programmatic APIs, there's a reporting module, there's exporting functions, and data can also be transformed into a format that can be loaded into Pure, which we call our XML synchronization framework. And we also can get data into Pure using a new write API, which helps you sort of programmatically write data into the system. So with all that as backdrop, what we wanted to do is interview some clients on their experiences of using those tools and technologies to get value out of systems integration between Pure and other systems, and just sort of hear how some of those experiences went. So that's the point of this panel. And so today we're joined by a group of panelists who represent 3 different universities in the United States. 2 of them have been with Pure for quite a while. And one is a relative newcomer, has been with us for about a year, but dove right into systems integration from the beginning of the project. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, and then we'll get into questions for the panel. So panelists, thanks for joining us. There we go. There's the panel. All right. So I'm going to ask everybody to go around in the order that you display, at least on my screen, so John, maybe you can lead us off.
Hello, everyone. I'm John Tremback. I'm president of Action Systems. We're a small IT development company focused on research and medical information systems in Chicago. Today, I'm representing Northwestern University. We spent the past 3 years with the Northwestern team integrating their data with Pure. Action Systems was responsible for the coding and development of the necessary support systems to complete the integration. I'm excited to be here and share some of our experiences with you.
Thanks, John. Jen, can you tell us a little bit about your role, your background, organization?
Sure. Good morning. I'm Jennifer Stilwell. I work at Central Michigan University. I sit within the Office of Information Technology as a project manager and had the opportunity to work with the CMU team in onboarding both Pure and Pure and Scopus, helping the team with the integrations, the data definitions, the site layout, pulling in the different sources, as well as rollout and training materials and such. So I'm excited to be here and looking forward to talking with you all.
Thanks, Jen. Dr. David?
Good morning, everyone. My name is David Weindorf, and I'm the Vice President for Research and Innovation here at Central Michigan University. So I worked with Jennifer with our project integration over the past year. My responsibility at the university is research enterprise management, as well as management of our graduate programs, and I do that again at the university scale. My academic background is I'm actually a soil scientist, so I've worked at a couple of universities having agriculture programs, but then here moved more into an administrative role, again, to oversee the research enterprise management. And I might just mention that this is the second university that I've worked to integrate the Pure platform to the university to showcase and highlight the expertise of the faculty. So pleasure to be with you this morning. Looking forward to the discussion.
Great. Thanks. Kim, can you go next?
Sure. Thanks, Pat. It's great to be back at Pure International. I'm Kim Musler, Pure Service Lead at New York University, New York campus, and we implemented Pure in 2015. I'm a member of NYU's central IT team. I focus on university systems and also lead the university's IT sustainability initiative.
Great. Thanks, everyone, for those introductions. And Kim, thank you for moderating sessions last year. So good to see you back. Okay, so going to go into some questions. So the first question is going to be about what kind of content types are involved in your particular integration, and who are you getting the data from that's going either into or out of Pure, or if it's going out, who are you giving it to? Just to kind of get a sense of the types of integration we're speaking about. We're then going to have other questions where we talk about, the outcomes of those integrations and what was involved. So So, but before we actually, before we have the panelists answer on that, I'd like to run an audience poll so that by the time we get a little bit further in the presentation, we'll have a sense of, for the people in the audience, what kind of integrations they're running. So you'll see the poll on the right-hand side. If you back out, if you're in full screen, you have to go out of full screen, I think. And the audience poll question is going to be, what kind of systems integrations into or out of Pure you're managing? For example, HR persons, organizations, research outputs, awards, grants, and that kind of thing. So there's a pick list there that you can choose to provide. And then we're going to circle back and review the audience results after our panelists give us a view from their particular institution. So let's go in the same order. John, at Northwestern University in the U.S., what kind of integrations, content types are going on, and who's involved in terms of the receiving or delivery end?
Sounds good. So Northwestern University is pulling data from about 10 different data sources, and we're combining all the data into a single user interface that's used by the scholar staff. The first thing that we did is we tackled integrating research projects and grants. The bulk of our data, some 25,000 university research grants, are being pulled weekly using web services from our Northwestern's grant system. But in addition to those grants, we also collect data from our affiliates. And these affiliates are actually sending us data in Excel. That Excel data then has to be uploaded into the data update tool and combined with the other university grants, and then a single XML file generated for Pure. After the integration of research projects and grants, we did focus our shift to organizations and persons. The university HR employee system was able to provide us with department and organizational hierarchy, the person demographic, and current person appointment data, all via web services. We also get from our HR system a message queue, which contains employee IDs that were recently edited by HR. We scan the message queue weekly for the new researchers and any updates to existing researchers. Though the HR employee system was able to provide us with the majority of the data, we did find out that there were many items that are spread out across other resources. We get our ORCID ID and researcher off-campus visibility preferences from our identity management system, affiliations from the University Research Institute, and education data from individual schools, as well as our pre-employment application system. And as you can guess, all this data is coming in a wide variety of formats. Some web services, others are coming to as a flat file, and still more as Excel documents that have to be uploaded. And as with research projects and grants, we combine everything and then generate a single organizational XML file or a single person XML file for loading it to Pure. Though Northwestern has a limited number of Pure users currently, we are also using the Pure web services to retrieve and monitor the updates of Pure by Pure users. So where are we going from here? Right now, we're in discussions about maybe doing some patent data integration.
Thanks, John. Okay, Jen, it's Central Michigan. How's what kinds of integrations are you doing?
Sure, and I'm going to ask Dr. Weindorf to kind of chime in with me here as we both kind of work through these. So primarily, Central Michigan University is integrating persons data from its HR system, which is currently SAP. We are exporting that data on a daily basis for the most part, I'll go with, into XML format, which is then picked up and loaded into Pure. The other integration that we do is through our Faculty Success Digital Measures product from Watermark, where we're pulling the presentations, performance exhibits, memberships, honors awards, licenses, certifications, media contributions, service elements, as well as intellectual contributions from there into our Pure environment, matching on a few pieces of data from the SAP. And then we do have some data loaded manually as well, both persons, facilities information, our grants information that isn't coming through the existing Pure loads and such like that. As John mentioned, the ORC ID and the Scopus ID information. Right now, we're kind of relying on the individuals themselves to provide it, or we've done some searching either through the Profile Refinement Service or other mechanisms through Scopus and such to find those for individuals. So.
just dovetail onto that
Yep,
and simply
please.
say that that's a great overview, Jen. And I think one of the things that's critically important for us is utilizing the portal for the highlighting of exhibits, visual and performing arts, performances, those types of things. You know, there are many sources where you can draw that information in terms of publications, again, using ORC-ID, Scopus IDs, those types of things. But as we all know, it's more challenging for visual and performing arts, gallery exhibits, those types of things. So we wanted to make sure that all of the faculty in our campus were adequately represented and, have a real chance to highlight their scholarly contributions to the university as well. So we kind of had a special focus on making sure that those integrations were successful as well.
And then kind of on the
Thanks.
output side of things, we're pulling out obviously content into our website and then SciVal, and have plans to further utilize some of the reporting capabilities in Pure as well.
Thanks. Okay. So thanks, Jen and David. Kim, at NYU, what kind of content types and who are you integrating to and from?
Sure. In terms of integrations on the New York City campus, all of our integrations flow data out of Pure into other systems. So we have 5 schools, colleges that leverage Pure research outputs, publications for web pages and a school-specific repository. I also have an integration in the build phase with a faculty lifecycle and reporting system, which will include research and content beyond the outputs, so such as activities, prizes, press, and media. So that's in the works as well.
Great. Okay. Okay. So that's our audience. Sorry, that's our panelists integration answer. Let's take a look at the audience poll. Can we make sure that the audience can see the poll results? Yes? Okay. All right. So it says that you guys can see this. All right. So anyway, let's take a look. It says, so the question was, what type of systems integration into or out of Pure are you managing? And then across the audience, we have 18% of the audience is doing a person's integration, probably from an HR system. Organizations, 15%, research outputs, 19%. So, and then in terms of data sets or full text, it goes down to about 10%. In terms of research projects or awarded grant, about 13% of the audience is integrating from an outside system, and about 10% are integrating citation metrics or impact statements from somewhere. And then it goes down, equipment, presentation awards, and classifications are a little bit smaller in terms of penetration. So that's good. So it's good to see what's out there in terms of the types of integrations, and that's sort of helpful to get a sense of what other people are doing around the country, around the world. So the next question was, let's talk about why. I'm going to ask you each to explain the reasons for this type of project in your situation. So maybe goals or purposes that you were seeking by doing that data integration from one system into the other. I think Jan Franson from University of Minnesota called it a crosswalk, which is kind of a cool word to just explain this in non-technical sense. So I'm just trying to see, like, from an organization or institution, what were the goals? What workflow benefits or efficiencies were you trying to get to? And then there'll be a follow-up question in terms of, hours saved, or if there's any way to characterize that in terms of the benefits, in terms of quantification. So we'll start with you, John. Same sequence, John. If you could tell us about Northwestern's experience.
Yep. So after the move to Pure, Northwestern found itself spending a significant amount of time manually processing data in order to get the updates in Pure. As a result, updates were only occurring quarterly, and the staff was spending over 40 hours manipulating data. And with any manual process, errors were creeping into the system, and interim updates were occasionally necessary. So at the beginning, Northwestern had identified several goals, and the main ones are the ability to update and publish grant, organization, and person data in regular weekly intervals, to increase our accuracy through data validation and business rules, to eliminate, reduce, and make more efficient the processes and steps required by the staff, and to eliminate or keep to a minimum the researchers need to populate their own data. And last, Northwestern wanted to explore expanded uses of Pure and definitely allow for growth.
Thanks, John. Jennifer, Dr. David at Central Michigan.
Yeah, I would say from our standpoint, there was really three things that come to mind for me. And John alluded to this as well, minimizing the burden on faculty. Already our faculty input their information into digital measures. And so we didn't want to have them have to integrate it into yet another system. So the ability to have digital measures data flow into Pure and then from there into SciVal for us to do advanced data metrics was really outstanding. And we really enjoy that flow of data, which minimizes the burden. We also want to keep it current. You know, the fact that we're able to have this data pull on regular intervals and, you know, we don't have to wait 6 months or a year for that data flow to occur is really helpful. And again, as I mentioned previously, capturing all people across our campus is critically important. We didn't want to just have a STEM-centric focus. You know, again, it's pretty easy to capture those publications, but getting the wide breadth of all of scholarly and creative activity was critically important on our campus. Jen, what would you say as well? You want to add anything there? Or?
No, I believe you summarized exactly what I was thinking as well. The piece of the updated data, you know, by pulling from our HR system, it's not on the responsibility of a person, so to speak, to go, oh, this person has moved departments or this person has moved positions or changed titles, left the university, joined the university. It just flows and gets updated. And that's a real time save as well as a value from the public aspect of of the searching and connections made.
Okay, great. Kim, how about you?
Yeah,
At
so,
NYU?
NYU has identified benefits very similar to what Dr. David, Jen, and John mentioned. So I won't repeat all that. But for the project we currently have in the build phase, integrating with the faculty lifecycle and reporting tool Interfolio, the goal is to build a comprehensive tool and reporting system by leveraging valued and curated data from a variety of resources already on hand. So obviously, Pure fits the bill in terms of that.
Great. Okay. So we heard save faculty time, save admins time, timeliness, accuracy, completeness, reliability of data, and comprehensive insight. Okay, great. Thanks. All right. So that's a lot of whys. Let's talk about the what, like what was involved. So can you just sort of characterize the, you know, from life cycle of the starting, like, hey, we want to do this, to now we're done, which in some cases you're not done. The process of, you know, getting approval, getting alignment across organizations, who has to sign off on using the data, you know, for a second purpose or a benefit, what resources and skills were involved, you know, activities like validating data, rolling out, communicating, maintaining. So anything like that, if you could just sort of characterize what stands in your mind, having looking back on that kind of a project, in terms of what was involved. So John, maybe we start with you again.
Sounds good. So Northwestern definitely approached this project with a divide and conquer approach. And with any project, we spent a significant amount of time, even before we started doing technical development, asking questions. And what data do we need? And what's our trusted sources of data? And who's in charge of the data? Identifying our key data source personnel. You know, all those questions needed to be answered. We also had to ask, do we want all of the data? Do we want just some of it? And we created lists of business rules for determining what sources or what criteria we need. Then we approached the question, are we sending everything, all that data to Pure? Do we want it all visible in the portal? Do we want some of it in the backend? So we established those business rules next. Then how do we get that data? Once we have that data, where we go? We started taking a look at our available IT resources or server resources, and we tried to determine what's the best course of action there. In the end, then we have to start asking, is this really everything that we need? And I'd like to stress how important it is that you validate your incoming data to make sure that it is everything that you need. The general rule, of course, is better to ask for more than add information later in the development process. Once you complete all the questions, then you actually then start with your technical development. And during our technical development, weekly meetings were key to keeping everybody moving on the same page. Frequently, we were calling the data source owners from other university departments, and Lars from Elsevier was good enough to jump in whenever we needed him. We did an extensive analysis of the system requirements and developed a technical statement of work. And After we completed our technical documentation, we then created a proof of concept application, which helped us identify any security concerns and verify that we were able to communicate successfully with Pure. We then also finished our development and then moved directly to testing and validation. Because we're doing updates on a weekly basis, okay, the testing period did take us a long time. We did an extensive amount of time reviewing the system data. And after several weeks, we did finally go live. We also did realize that some of the business rules we had in place only take effect at the change of the fiscal year. So at the change of the fiscal year, the production system had to be retested and tweaked to ensure that these infrequent rules were working properly when the fiscal year changed.
Thanks, John, for that. Jen, and you were deep into the project itself, so why don't you tell us how that went?
Sure. Prior to kind of even, I would say, kicking off implementation, I know Dr. Weindorf led a pretty expansive team evaluating different products that landed on the decision of Elsevier and Pure and Stilwell. So I don't know if you want to talk about that first before I kind of jump into our implementation.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did. We impaneled an implementation team, and they started off, the group did. There was about a dozen different folks evaluating the different products. And the evaluation and implementation team included folks not only from our office, but also from the libraries, faculty members, from the Office of Information Technology. And one of the things that we considered once we made the decision to go with Elsevier is what data do we have available in the different fields within digital measures? And what fields do we want to capture? There were some fields where we have data for every single faculty member, but then there are other fields where we only have, input from 50% or 20%. So it's kind of this balancing act in terms of what fields do we want to capture and how expansive is that data. Our implementation team throughout the implementation had weekly meetings, and that was critically important. Jennifer's team, and I'll let her talk about that in just a second, led a lot of those efforts. But one of the important decisions we had to make is who do we want to cover? So we made the decision at Central Michigan University that since we wanted to highlight faculty expertise specifically related to research, we would exclude our what we call fixed-term faculty members who are only here to conduct teaching. We certainly make exceptions for that. If there's somebody who wants to be included, all they have to do is email us and we'll add them in. But just kind of identifying what the population is that we wanted captured within the database, and then what types of fields of data we wanted to capture, then we were off and running. Jen, I'll let you speak to that, the nuts and bolts of how we got it done.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's exactly it. Was as John and Dr. Weindorf now said, it was identification of the population and then the data about them. We were fortunate to leverage quite a few members of the Elsevier team with Lars and others to build our integration with faculty success that leverage that population that we identified, the specific faculty groups and the faculty members themselves. Then how are we going to match them up to the digital measures and faculty success data? We went back and forth identifying which specific information from faculty success we wanted to pull in, who had that, how many records. I think at one point we were well over 200,000 records of data coming in from faculty success that we had to pare down, not just for duplication, but to ensure that they were pulling in for the accurate faculty member and the faculty level. And such like that. We weren't pulling the person's, say, full history at Central Michigan University, but just those pieces from faculty success that were relevant. And so pulling in and having a dynamic implementation team that leveraged the development staff of OIT, coming in with those developers and such like that, leveraging the great team at Elsevier to helping us build the faculty success integration and working with us through that validation. As I'm sure many on the call, on the panel and meeting today could kind of address, not everybody can see everything in these other systems. So, one challenge that as we were looking through testing and validation, was majority of our implementation team couldn't see records in the system of record of faculty success. So I couldn't go into faculty member, Anna, and say, hey, what does your whole profile look like there, to validate that as it came into our Pure instance, it came in the, the right sense and the right type. So having already included our subject matter expert of faculty success, even at the beginning stages of evaluating the products, she knew where we were at. She didn't have to be in every implementation meeting. We could pull her in, leverage her expertise to helping us do the testing and validation throughout the project and such like that. And we had a learning lesson learned in that we originally didn't identify the intellectual contributions coming from faculty success as the data type we needed. And then as we got into rollout, realized, nope, there were some significant pieces and significant elements from that content type that we needed. And so we again leveraged the great team at Elsevier to help us getting that content in as we pushed through training and rollout, to ensure that profiles were as robust and complete as possible. So it was a good team.
Okay, great. Kim from NYU, and what was involved in your project in terms of like high level?
Sure.
factors?
So I mentioned earlier, we're mid-project integrating with the Interfolio platform. And so we went through an evaluation stage, and we're a resourcing and implementation team gathering phase. So I'd like to mention we have an impressive cross-functional team on hand, including individuals from project management and API technical team resources, communications, change management, and the pure subject matter expert, that's me. And so we're currently building the integration, and we're actually just starting some validation as we're having to build content type by content type. That's what we found is the approach that was going to work well with this particular integration. So we do have a plan for change management and maintenance, but that's yet to kick off. So stay tuned. I could give a full report out a year from now.
Great. Okay, we'll call you back next year. All right, so now the next question. We have about 23 minutes. I want to leave a good amount of time. So for the next question, I'd like you to consolidate a couple different topics. So could you describe, to what extent your team or institution feels that the project was successful, and metrics and reasons why? So for example, if you have any data on the types of efficiencies that were created or relative to prior to the project, if you could share those. But yeah, let's cover both what went well, successes and measures of that, and then opportunities. So things that in your, sort of still are out there, still need to be resolved or could have went better. So, John, you want to start with Northwest?
Sure. So as I said before, prior to our integration, updates were occurring quarterly and required 40 hours of data manipulation by the staff. So now the Scholar staff only needs to verify that the data received from our various sources looks correct. And actually, this is the most time-consuming step of the process, and depending on the data, usually only takes a few hours. So now we're updating data weekly, and it can be even completed more frequently as necessary. A couple of mouse clicks and the XML files are there, and Pure is updated. So essentially, we met all of the goals that we set out to accomplish, but then we also found out that something unexpected happened. We started with the idea of creating a tool just for updating Pure. But what happened is we ended up creating a data silo and warehouse that can be used by many applications across research services. We found that we have a master list of researchers. We have all their appointments, all their affiliations, all their grants, all their education. It's in one place. It's in one format that all future applications can use. So it's a great opportunity for us moving forward.
Thanks, John. Jen and David?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what John said. The successes of the project were pulling together a variety of data that could not be pulled together, that had not been pulled together, but also could not be viewed internally or externally. The ability to match up this data and being able to dynamically use it for a variety of purposes was incredibly powerful and eye-opening to a lot of different levels of our organization, but also to just realize that we put our site public and within 48 hours had a question from an individual in Kansas asking a question to one of our researchers. I thought that was a proof of success right there. And I know it definitely put a spring in the step of the implementation team. So those are the pieces I would say would really be the success drivers.
Yeah, I would add on to that. I would say at our campus, communication and transparency are of paramount importance to the faculty and the administration. We want everybody to see what's going on our campus and to be open, as honest about that as we can. This is the first system that we've implemented where people like university communications can easily query, the latest research coming out of the university or find experts to comment on contemporary stories in the news. hosts our patent portfolio, which is a great shingle for us to hang out for technology transfer and commercialization. And then, one of the things that we're really excited about is identifying specific faculty members as related to unique grant opportunities that, if we have a specific call that comes out that's highly specific, we may not know on campus who would have the expertise to even apply for that. But again, using these types of tools, we're able to drill down through that, identify those people, and get those opportunities to them immediately. And that's the first time we've had anything like that at CMU. It's really a tremendous advance.
Great. Okay, Kim, how about you? What? Well, you've done some inbound integrations. You're doing some outbound integrations, and so how would you look at success and opportunities for more?
Well, it's great to hear the success stories that were just shared, and I'm hoping to share similar about a year from now. It's invigorating. So we're going to look at success in similar ways, also specifically internally, as most of the Interfolio platform will be viewed in that manner. We're also mid-build, so we're looking at some challenges still as finishing on time. We could have allocated a bit more time to manually mapping and coding of the data. So we're still very mid-project. So please stay tuned.
All right, great. Thanks for that. Okay.
Patrick,
well, no,
I'm
yes.
sorry. Before you move on, I just want to remind those tuned in that we have the live Q&A. And so you've heard the panelists share their perspectives, and we want to know what your questions are that they can answer. Patrick's peppered them with a lot, but we're sure you have some questions too. So put those into the live Q&A, and then we'll get to them as they can.
Great. Okay. One of there was a follow-up topic that I wanted to ask you about in terms of service providers. So some people do this with their Office of Information Technology and things, and then others have, like, for a trusted contractor. For example, John is an example of that. Somebody who works for the university doing these kind of projects. And then in the past, the company that founded Pure, Atira, used to provide a service where they would do the extract, transform, and load on behalf of their clients. We found that there's some value of having the work done internally and close to the university, and then there's some value in having that done by somebody that's an expert in Pure and the data model and things like that. And we're considering again the idea that, hey, because we have come across universities who are like, yes, I want the software. Yes, I have the money to pay for the programming to integrate, but no, I don't have anybody available from the Office of Technology this year because they're working on a student system replacement or something else. So for whatever reason. So one of the questions I have for the panelists is, the ideas of, maybe the pros and cons. What did you find in your experience were the pros and cons of the model that Yo chose for how you resource the project? And I think we have a variety of different examples here represented. So maybe John, you're somewhat biased as a provider of these services. So, I don't know what we do with your view on this. But.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that when the project started, that Northwestern took a long look to see if the project was reasonable to develop internally. Oftentimes organizations do prefer in-house development. It's your staff working on your priorities, sharing your goal. But as you said, sometimes there are a limited number of staff developers, and there just isn't enough staff to handle all the necessary projects. What Northwestern, I guess, realized is that they needed to call a contractor, and the big advantage, contractors like Elsevier or like Action Systems, help fill in the gaps of human resources with skilled personnel. And, if you find the right contractor, they really do become a seamless part of your team, and they share in your goals and they work for your successes.
Thanks. Jen, Dr. David?
Sure. So as we mentioned, we leveraged the internal OIT team kind of towards the tail end of that evaluation that Dr. Weindorf led. There were conversations with OIT regarding prioritization, availability of resources. We even had some additional conversations with Elsevier to kind of understand the time commitment and when, right? Because in every implementation, sometimes the data integrations are done at the beginning, sometimes they're done at the end. For our Pure implementation, we did them more towards the beginning, letting the end part be configuring the site, understanding the relationships, doing the outward facing pieces as opposed to the back end data integration pieces.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say, this is the second university that I've done peer integration with. My previous employer was Texas Tech University, where I was associate vice president there. And both there as well as here, we've chosen to do the internal OIT integration within the university. It's worked well. Certainly, I think, the other model works well as in addition to the way we've done it. One thing that I would say is I think working with the internal OIT organization, it gives you a sense of organizational culture. The people here really have a sense of what's important to the faculty here, what concerns do they have. And I can tell you between my two institutions, the culture was different and the concerns raised by the faculty were different. Things that were of concern at Texas Tech, maybe less so here. Other concerns here that were less so at Texas Tech. So being close to that and really hearing the concerns of the faculty and working with Elsevier to resolve those and allay those concerns has been fantastic. And yeah, it's worked well.
Great, thanks. Kim?
Yeah, so we've also leveraged our internal team. And as Dr. David mentioned, there's the pros of having institutional knowledge and climate right on hand. And also, NYU is fairly large, so we have a fair number of internal resources that could help across a number of teams. And I also have to give a shout out to our partners at Elsevier. So we have a number of individuals on hand, who you are, who I ask questions to as they come up, and they're, answered in very quick time. So it's been great.
Great. Thanks for everyone for your views on that now, and for all of the discussion we've had so far. So Bonnie, I wonder if we have any audience questions, yes, that we can.
Yes, we do. Thank you. I was glad. It's just perfect timing. So we had several come in. I want to give you one from Jan Franzen. She asks, for CMU, how do you handle deduplicating or merging items with multiple CMU authors when each author entered it separately and maybe differently in faculty science success? I guess that's the program. Yeah.
That's a really
Jen,
good question. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. That, it's a really good question. It was one that took us some time. So one of the things we learned from faculty success is as people enter it, they have the opportunity to indicate kind of who's the author. And one thing they'd done that was a benefit to the implementation of Pure for us was that within the identification of authors, they were putting their global ID, which is the internal ID for CMU. And so as the data came through, we were able to deduplicate, this looks a lot like this because of the same global IDs, we can join versus duplicating. If they didn't include the other authors in their entry, there's a little less to do that on. The deduplication from there, Elsevier worked with us on, common terms, maybe similar dates, streamlining and cleaning up, so to speak, of maybe conference names, presentation types, things like that, so that as it came in, it was deduped on the import side and such like that. From there, as faculty members reviewed their profile or noticed something, this is a little off, it should be this, we've handled those through the administration side of Pure and kind of a one-by-one basis. And talking with Elsevier, we would kind of collect all of that feedback as we, are now in the rollout live phase and see if there's options for further cleanup programmatically and deduping later down the road.
And I think part of that was also the profile refinement service provided by Elsevier in terms of the deduplication. Is that
yep.
Patrick, is that correct? Yeah. So, but it's worked well.
That's good. Yeah. So you're able to tweak it so that it works better automatically with less manual involvement, but still some manual always required.
Right.
Another question, this one from Mark. And he says, David mentioned adding research output for arts faculty. And I know humanities is a big problem. We spend a lot of time talking about science, and humanities gets a little bit of a short shift. So for galleries, exhibits, things like that into Pure, where's that data coming from? Internal departmental records, external sources? How are you being able to get that in?
That's an excellent question. And in response to that, what we would say is the academic leadership here at our university, to include the deans and the provost, have really put a large emphasis on making sure that all faculty from all fields make their annual records of their annual records in digital measures. And so, in terms of just filling out your annual performance report and, doing that in Microsoft Word and handing it in, we're going away from that, right? We're going to where all of those records need to be in digital measures, and that includes our visual and performing artists. So even though they may not have a paper that they want to pull in from a source like Scopus or Web of Science to put up there, they can type in their gallery exhibits, they can type in their performances, and make sure all of those performances and exhibits were clearly documented, ways in which their works were uniquely identified in their fields of study, and that way we have good records on that. And again, as all of that information is sucked up into Pure, all of those words that become part of the titles of their exhibits and things form that fingerprint, which is then used to identify that scholar within their field. And so it's been a very constructive approach for us.
That's great. Well, that all leads to your communication and open transparency. You get everybody on board. It makes for a more robust system. In the previous session that I was moderating, they're talking about the reward and recognition program that they have going on in I get the country wrong, but just talking about the fact that we're going towards more narrative types of CVs and things like that. And so you have to have that more robust picture of all the activities that are involved and not just numbers. And so, like Mark said, getting that data in is a little bit harder, but having the institution behind it makes it work. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. There was a question about the integrations and the positive lessons, and it seems like maybe in Europe, they're a little bit ahead of us on that, the US, and maybe it just happens to be the makeup of the panel. But how do you guys feel about that? Do you feel like we're just sort of catching up to where everybody is? Or, like, is this new? Everything new is old again, or everything old is new again, whichever way that goes?
These types of systems just provide new ways to look at information, right? I can't speak to specifically how they're doing things in Europe, but as technology has evolved, having this virtual conference today, talking to people in North America, if you turn back the clock 10 years ago, we wouldn't have had this type of opportunity. New technologies, new databases, new ways of accessing information, parsing information, these inform the research enterprise, and knowledge is power. So we always talk about that. Fortune favors the bold. We need to undertake new initiatives. We need to think about new ways of doing things to highlight the good work that we're doing and really try to get the word out there. One of the biggest things I hear in research circles in modern times talks about research communication, making sure that the work that we're doing is relevant to people in our community, in our state, in our nation, in the world. It's not just doing it for doing its sake, but what impact is that having? And so utilizing systems like this, I think, really makes that research translate and resonate towards end users.
I agree. Anybody else? So I was thinking, as you're talking about the integrations that you've done and are in the middle of doing, there's always new things, as Dave was saying, new things, new integrations coming in. And as John has said earlier, you want to grab all you can up front because you never know what they're going to ask on the output side. And how do you sort of build that into your planning because new integrations are going to come up. Pure is wonderful and enables something new that we can now include. We just enabled paywall. And so that's now all of a sudden we have all these journal and articles that were open access that we didn't have that information before and could never report on. And we just reported on it and everybody's all agog. So I never knew to ask and I never knew how to do it. And Pure made that happen. So what are some of the integrations you see coming or might be coming or that you would like to see coming that would make your work better? Oh, I left it open. Go ahead, Kim. Somebody else talk.
No, that's a great question, Bonnie. I'm just noodling on it. Given that, I think Dr. David used the word, research enterprise. I mean, I just think there's so many opportunities that we could potentially take advantage of. That I think there are many different avenues we could go under or go towards. I'm having a difficult time just pinpointing just one, as the research field and faculty reporting and grants and Chris. It's a very large enterprise.
You know, one thing I might add on, something that I see coming down the pike is social media, of course, is just blowing up, right? I mean, we've got all these different platforms. That's how students are finding us. You know, they want to do things on apps now and all this, right? Really think about the nexus of the research enterprise with social media. It's communicating science, it's connecting students with future faculty members, connecting faculty members with other things. It's vlogs, it's podcasts, it's all types of ways that we can communicate through social media, integrating with science. And I think Pure kind of is a hub that could utilize multiple different aspects of that.
See, look at you giving me a segue into the next session, which is demystifying metrics. And Stephanie from PlumX is actually going to talk in that section along with Thomas. So, so everybody that's interested in that, it will be coming up soon. I was trying to think there was something else. John, did you have anything you wanted to add about what integrations you're kind of looking for or would help build a better system for you, or that you're afraid of?
No, so the thing that I know Northwestern's, now that we've realized that we've got, this data silo and data warehouse, I think we are taking a step back and taking a look at how we can utilize that and optimize not only, our access to Pure or what Pure's capabilities, but all systems across the board.
Yeah, that's so good. Jennifer had mentioned, and we've had the same experience. We have all this data across the university, but as John said, very siloed. And now it's in one place and people can see it all. And so it's just building wonderful collaborations and visualizations of the information, and a great tool for promoting the work that our researchers do, which is the whole point of it. If nobody knows what they're doing, I think David said, then it has no impact, right? So, and that's a big shift, I think, in science as well, to make it more visible, more open, so that people can get not only credit for what they do, but help society, move forward, which is a fundamental reason for having science knowledge to begin with. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Anybody, Patrick, did you have anything else you wanted to follow up with the panel about?
No, I think it was a great discussion. I think we articulated what's going on, examples. We shed some light for those who might be thinking of considering an integration, what to think about in terms of being prepared for that, what the benefits might be. So I think it was good in that sense. We realized this is a global audience, and while somebody may have done all these integrations already, at their university in some place, there's lots of other institutions who are just getting started on their journey with Pure. And so I think this is a great piece of, education, just to give people a sense of what, if they tackle projects like this, what benefits they can achieve. So thanks everyone for your contributions. I appreciate that. So thanks everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say I spent a lot of time looking in the other user groups, because people in all different places are doing different things that you're just now thinking of doing. And so there's great expertise out there in the user groups. And then, of course, from the Pure support staff that have worked with them and put these integrations in place. So it's really, there's a whole network of support out there when you're trying something new, and there's always something new.
There sure is. And if you don't know who to talk to, contact Pure Support at Elsevier.com. And we're always here to help. We have lots of team members in whatever time zone you're in to point you to either resources or, provide consulting and things like that. So.
Best customer support people by far. Yeah. I hear that.
Good to hear.
Yeah. Thank you. So I think that's it. We'll wrap it up. Let me see what my script says. So thank you. That was great. That's the end of this particular session. I didn't thank all of the presenters. Hopefully they can still hear me, because it was fantastic. And getting those perspectives and knowing that you can integrate something new into your system and have it work is just fantastic, and it makes it such a better system. We're going to have a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll be moving across to, as I mentioned, Pure Metrics Demystified. That'll be led by Thomas Gurney and Stephanie I'm going to say her name, Faulkner. Yes, I got it right. They're both in Elsevier, and they have a lot to tell us about the metrics that are coming into Pure and what you can do with them, and maybe what will be coming. So thank you all.